Welcome back to Global Business Europe. What does the coming year have in store? The World Economic Forum has released its latest outlook for the global economy ahead of next week's annual meeting in Davos.
36 of the world's leading chief economists were surveyed. Juliet Mann has been looking at all the results. What does it tell us then?
Well, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, Jamie and Sally. 2025 is set to be a challenging year for the world economy, with 56% of chief economists expecting conditions to get worse, while only 17% think things will get better. Now, we all know Europe's economy is pretty wobbly, but you know what? Almost 3 in 4 analysts expect weak or very weak growth this year, and that's the continent's worst outlook for nearly 3 years. But things look a little better for the United States. 44% see strong growth in the short term, but rising debt and inflation means that, well, they're still bugbears, so that's a longer-term concern. Almost half of chief economists believe global trade volumes will rise in 2025, and that's despite the threat of all this tit-for-tat protectionist measures we're hearing about. Now, Aengus Collins is from the World Economic Forum and lead author of this report.
I think overall the outlook is pretty gloomy at the moment, according to the chief economists. I think there are 3 main things that come out of the latest chief economist's outlook. I think one is a weak overall prospect for the global economy. I think obviously all eyes are on the US, and I think quite a lot of expectation of change within the US, and I think quite a lot of uncertainty over what those changes will mean for the rest of the world. And I think a third thing I'd highlight is, and this is a trend we've been seeing for quite a while, obviously, but I think much more attention being paid now to fragmentation across different parts of the global economy. And I think there's one overarching concern, I think, that underpins those 3 things, and again has become a more pressing concern of the chief economists in recent years, and that's the relationship between politics and economics.
You said it's all eyes on the US, but what about China? Where do you think what are going to be the domestic and the international policy drivers?
I think the relationship between the US and China, both economically and politically, geopolitically, is clearly, I think, crucial in all sorts of ways. We are seeing a divergence across the chief economists' outlooks in the economic performance of the US and China. I think that's a little bit more pronounced this time than previously. The proportion of our chief economists who are expecting strong growth in the US over the short term has picked up in the latest edition. Meanwhile, the Chinese outlook remains a bit subdued, certainly compared to the kind of growth rates that had been usual. But it's for 3 years now. It's actually Europe that is the weakest.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about, because Europe continues to rank as the weakest region for the 3rd year in a row. What can shift the dial there? I would like to say I have the answer to that question. I'm afraid I don't. I think Europe is very clearly an example of a situation where that relationship between politics and economics is playing a very big role. There are obviously over the last few months there have been political difficulties in the 2 largest economies within the Eurozone, Germany and France. I think some of those dynamics, I think, make it difficult to develop the kind of political and economic agenda that might help to drive European growth rates up. Aengus, let's zone in on global trade. Volumes are expected to go up, but trade war dynamics are expected to intensify, aren't they?
I think this is an interesting one. Overall, the chief economists this time have said, looking at the US in particular, that they see this moment as a durable shift for the trajectory of the global economy. And one of the things that jumps out in that respect is this expectation of intensifying trade war dynamics between the major powers, but also more broadly. But I think it's important to note that these trade war dynamics have been in place for quite a while now, and global trade volumes, again, the activity has been sluggish in recent years, but there's a lot of resilience there, and I think it is important that despite the clear headwinds, and I think the volatility, the uncertainty, that sense of not being quite sure what risks might come down the track, things are still moving from A to B.